Professor Chilani, I'll come to Trump on India in just a moment, but how do you see Trump saying, I want to get back Bagram airfield is just an hour away from China?
What it underlines is Trump's expansionism. Ever since he's returned to the White House, he's been seeking to expand America's global footprint. He's also seeking to actually grab additional territories for the US. But look at the irony. US troops today are stationed in at least 172 countries and territories. And he now wants to enter Afghanistan by having Bagram under US control. The US military presence in Bagram may have made sense when US troops were present in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Now he wants to return to Bagram for his expansionist objectives. It will not be good for India's security if US troops are in Bagram, because that will only further reinforce US-Pakistan cooperation. As it is, we are seeing in recent days US officials and US military officers going to Kabul, talking to the Taliban, negotiating over Bagram and other issues, including the release of some of the funds, central bank funds of Afghanistan that have been frozen by Washington. What we are seeing is growing US-Pakistan cooperation, including in relation to Afghanistan. And this is not good news for India. And to make matters worse, one major development has happened in the last 2 days, which has received no media attention in India, which is that the US quietly has revoked its sanctions exemption for the Chabahar port, which is operated by India. That waiver, exemption, sanctions exception will go effective from September 29th, just a few days from now. And the Indian operator of that Chabahar port could face US sanctions. Now, this is another squeeze of India by the Trump administration, not content with 50% tariffs on India. India is the first and only victim of Trump's secondary sanctions over Russian energy. And now comes this additional step, which basically affects only India.
Interesting that you mentioned this, and I want to bring in Ambassador Sikri. While we mentioned about America wanting to come into Bagram, it's already in Bangladesh. It's already in Chattogram. How do you see that? They claim that it's exercise lightning shock, but is it just a military exercise? The regime change operation that Sheikh Hasina spoke of, that she refused to give an island, St. Martin Island, to America, and that's why she was removed. Does it all add up now? And is that a major cause for India to be concerned?
That is certainly what is happening in Bangladesh is certainly a major cause for concern, because we know that under Sheikh Hasina and even before that, there were never any military exercises planned between USA and Bangladesh. Not at all. And not that we were ever told or they were not there at all. But now, after Sheikh Hasina has left Bangladesh and the Yunus-led regime, which has the Jamaat-e-Islami behind them, really, they're in charge. We are seeing that the Americans have gone in. Now, for example, at one time, there was the humanitarian corridor between Bangladesh and Myanmar. And the UN Secretary General proposed it, and America said they would operate it and, send humanitarian aid to the Rakhine state where the Arakan army is evident. But at that point, the Bangladesh army chief opposed it and said, no, we oppose it because it's going to affect the sovereignty of Bangladesh. But today we find that there is two things that happened. One, there has been a non-disclosure agreement signed between Bangladesh and the USA, and we don't know what's in it. Does it allow for this kind of military exercises? We certainly don't know on what basis these very sharp increase in military exercises involving hundreds of American airmen going to Bangladesh is happening, number one. Number two, we do know that there was an intense training of Bangladeshi army officers which was going on. And very recently, at the end of August, we saw a very senior American Special Forces officer died in Western Hotel in Dhaka. And that became a huge issue, but then it's been completely hushed up. But, he was a long-term staying guest at the Western Hotel, and it was being assumed that training the Bangladesh armed forces. Side by side with all of this, we have the Pakistan ISI and senior Pakistan army officer being stationed almost in every division of the Bangladesh army throughout the country. And Asim Munir saying the next attack is going to come from the east. So I do
Yes.
think this is today one of the most serious issues that is there between India and Bangladesh. We need to know from Bangladesh and from USA, because President Trump has spoken so warmly about the global comprehensive partnership between India and USA. He has telephoned our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister has responded so well. But on this critical issue, it's very important. In China, on Bagram base, in Pakistan, on the relationship now between Asim Munir and President Trump, in
Yes.
Bangladesh, for both for Bangladesh and for Myanmar, all of these, we're seeing America attacking China in places where China had already worked out deals with all these countries. Now,
It's
tomorrow
very
morning,
interesting. So is it checkmate China, or should red flags, Professor Chilani, also go up in India, because this is very close to sensitive Manipur, to our sensitive northeastern states, where there are reports of foreign interference when that Kuki Meitei tension was on.
You're right, Gaurav. In fact, Manipur is being destabilized by US policy to overthrow the military junta in Myanmar. The US military aid to the rebels in Myanmar, some of that aid, including the militants, are getting into Manipur and even into Mizoram. So the northeast of India, which is a very vulnerable part of India, risks getting destabilized. And I think the broader point we should not note that even though the US and India have this what's called comprehensive and global strategic partnership, but in India's own immediate neighborhood, US and Indian interests are so divergent because whether
Yes.
it's Bangladesh, Myanmar, Pakistan, or even Nepal, the US and India are not on the same page. And as far as Bangladesh is concerned, I think we should, there's certain facts that speak for themselves. The US targeted the Sheikh Hasina government and
Yes.
it backed the overthrow of Hasina. Since then, the US has been silent over the human rights abuses, repression, and Islamist violence in Bangladesh. In fact, Washington has turned a blind eye to the US regime reversing bans on jihadist groups that were previously linked to terrorism and releasing notorious Islamist leaders, including convicted terrorists. Yunus has openly partnered with Islamists since taking office.